Hi guys, welcome back to Nairobi Legal Insights. In this video, we're going to be introducing company or corporate law, and over the next couple of weeks, we're going to have various videos on company law so that you get a clear overview of what this specific area of the law entails. This is part of the larger unit, which is commercial transactions, and the goal is to ensure that you get at least a clear understanding of company or corporate law from a Kenyan perspective. One of the main key principles to understanding company law is what we call the principle of corporate personality. And what this principle means is that a company is a legal person, it is an artificial person with separate existence from its shareholders. Now, using an example here, if we have 50 shareholders, and these 50 shareholders own shares in company X, as far as the concept of corporate personality is concerned, these 50 shareholders will have a separate legal personality from the company itself. Now, by looking at the case of Salomon versus Salomon, you will be able to appreciate the origin of the principle of corporate personality. But in a more practical way, once you go register a company, let's say you go on eCitizen and file all the necessary documents and you incorporate a company, and a company comes into existence with its own name, what will happen is that that company will become an independent person from its shareholders, and it will have its own rights and liabilities. Now, by liabilities, what I mean is that a company can also have its own debts, and it will have to service those debts from its own resources. And we are going to be looking at features of a company in detail. The second key concept to appreciate as we introduce company law is what we call the corporate veil. And simply put, a company has a legal personality separate and independent from the identity of shareholders. And of course, the implication of this is that the company will end up having its own rights and obligations or even liabilities, which are going to be separate from its shareholders. Now, to give you an example here, if we have 50 shareholders and these 50 shareholders have contributed capital in form of shares in company X, should company X have any further obligations, these shareholders are not responsible for the obligations of this company, because like we said in the beginning, the company is a legal person and it has its own rights and obligations. And as far as debts or further financing is concerned, the company has the mandate to take care of its own affairs. And so when we talk about limited liability, what we mean is that these shareholders are only responsible to the extent of their capital contribution. So I contributed that amount. If I contributed, I'm one of the 50 shareholders, I've contributed 100,000, I am only responsible only to the extent of my capital contribution. And of course, simply put, that is what we call limited liability. You may wonder, why was the concept of the corporate veil created? Why is it that companies have a separate legal personality from their shareholders? Now, the logic behind this is that this concept of the corporate veil was created to enable individuals pursue an economic purpose as a single unit, meaning that 5 people can come together, they incorporate a company, and that company will have a separate legal personality from them. Or maybe 100 people can buy shares in a company, and of course, there will be separate legal personality between those shareholders and the company. And the advantage of this is that these investors or shareholders are not exposed to risks and liabilities, because like we stated earlier, a company, once incorporated, becomes an independent person and it can pay for its own debts and liabilities, and it can also, of course, raise capital and basically operate independent from the shareholders. Some of the key distinctive features or even advantages as to why you would opt to go and create a company vis-a-vis a partnership, and we shall be looking into that later on. For now, just know one of the key features of actually registering or incorporating a company is that that company will be able to own its own property. The company will be able to sign binding contracts with various parties. It can also raise capital in its own capacity as a company. And of course, again, it will have its own obligations, paying back debt, meaning that overall, all these things are going to be done independent of its members, because now we have a fully functional artificial person with these rights upon incorporation. The other key thing you should appreciate is that also once you have this company into existence, it can be sued in its own name, and it can also sue another party. And that's why you will see cases where a company is suing an individual or a company is suing another company. And another beauty of course, incorporating a company is that a company can survive the death of its members. There are several companies you see that have been in existence for over 100 years, and the shareholders or the members died a long time ago. Once a company is created, it becomes an artificial person. A natural person is you and me. But once you go register a company and you get all the right documentation, then you've created an artificial person who has its own rights and liabilities. As we come to the conclusion of this video, we discussed the concept of corporate personality and the corporate veil, and also mentioned the case of Solomon versus Solomon. In our next video, we are going to be looking at exceptions to the corporate personality principle. Basically, under what circumstances can the corporate veil be lifted? Now, much as a company is its own artificial person, it can sue and be sued in its own name, it has its own rights and obligations. There are also circumstances where we are going to go after the directors of that company in the event of fraudulent activities. Because at the end of the day, much as we talk about a company, it is still run by individuals. It still has shareholders behind it. So under what circumstances, under what exceptions can we go after these shareholders and hold them accountable for the actions of the company? That is going to be our discussion in the next video. Thank you so much for watching this video. Consider subscribing so that you receive notifications every single time we are going to be posting a video on company law and generally commercial transactions, which is the goal to finish the whole commercial transactions. And of course, company law becomes a subunit under commercial transactions. So by subscribing, you will be able to receive a notification every single time we post a new video. And you can also follow us on our LinkedIn page, which is Nairobi Legal Insights. Should you need any assistance or have any feedback as far as this video is concerned, please do not hesitate to comment below. Thank you.